Good evening, everybody. Good to see you. Just want to remind you, we're starting a new series tonight on shame and shame reduction. And basically, it'll be a 3-week series. So I'm kind of excited about doing it. I kind of like doing this series right after the codependency series because they kind of dovetail each other. I want to begin tonight by doing a reading from The Language of Letting Go, the codependency book. And I picked the one for June the 5th. Shame can hold us back, hold us down, and keep us staring at our feet. Watch out for shame. Many systems and people reek of shame. They are controlled by shame and they want us to play their game with them. We don't have to fall into their shame. Instead, we'll take our good feelings, self-acceptance, love, and nurturing. Compulsive behaviors, addictive behaviors, overeating, chemical abuse, sexual addiction, and addictive gambling are shame-based behaviors. If we participate in them, it definitely will give us some shame. It's inevitable. Our past and the brainwashing we may have had imposed original shame upon us. May try to put shame on us. This can happen when we're all alone, walking through the grocery store, or just quietly going about living our life. Don't think, don't feel, don't grow, don't change. Don't be alive, don't live life, be ashamed. Be done with shame, attack it, go to war with it, learn to recognize it, and to try to avoid it like the plague. Today, I will deliberately refuse to get caught up in the shame floating around in the universe. If I can't resist it, I can feel it, accept it, and then try to relieve it as much as possible. God, help me know it's okay to love myself and help me to refuse to submit to different elements of shame. If I get off course, help me to learn to change my shame into guilt, correct the behavior, and move forward with my life in immediate self-love. I want to read that because we're going to talk tonight. I have to say this ahead of time. Tonight's talk might be just a little bit depressing. Sorry about that. Okay, because I want to talk about the different faces of shame tonight. And then for the next 2 weeks, I'll talk about something called shame reduction and the recovery process in dealing with shame. A lot of the aspects of shame are also interconnected with something I talked about in earlier lectures called the iceberg theory. And a copy of that you can find on the website in Vince's Corner, where it says alternative resources. You can download it. It's right there. Because one of the things we realize when it comes to shame is the core and the center, the heart of all the other issues that go on inside of us. And the ultimate thing about shame is something that really literally binds us if we don't deal with it. After a while, it almost becomes normal to us. One of my great teachers, John Bradshaw, God rest his soul, is not with us anymore. But John wrote the book, Healing the Shame That Binds You. It actually was the Bible in dealing with shame for quite a long period of time. I had the wonderful privilege of going to and participating in 2 of his workshops over in Philadelphia that were put on by PBS. And I got to meet John and talk to him. And he really had his finger on the concept of something called original shame and something called learned shame. So tonight what I want to do is I want to look at those 2 areas and be able to present to you what I call the faces of shame. As we look at this concept of shame, realize the fact that so many of us for a long period of time have kept this thing shame inside of us. All the areas of addiction, no matter what they are shame-based. So addiction is basically shame-based. And as a result, so many of us migrate towards different forms of addiction to avoid having to feel, get in touch with our feelings, or to look at ourselves. And I can say that from experience, because I know in my life for 44 years, I was shut down, closed off, never really dealt with a lot of the issues of shame, the stuff that was going on inside of me. There are many faces of shame: guilt, fear, abuse, abandonment, isolation, lying, making stories up, surviving, all kinds of elements of shame. There's so many of them. In fact, in the iceberg, there's over 10 to 15 different concepts of shame that are centralized around shame. And the name for shame is self-hatred, a very unhealthy sense of myself as a person. I never understood this until I was told a long time ago that I was spiritually dead. I had no idea who I was. And so literally I lived in the stuff that was taught to me for a long period of time. I was able to begin to break the bonds with a lot of help and a lot of direction. So tonight what I want to do is I want to basically talk about what I call original shame. Original shame is shame that was put on us in growing up as little children. Those shame-based concepts were used as major forms of control, major forms of fear. As we go through the rest of our journey in life, we also pick up learned shame. And learned shame is stuff we pick up from other people around us. For example, so many times in high school, we picked up a lot of learned shame, wanting to be part of the in crowd, wanting to belong, wanting to be accepted, and basically feeling less than anybody else, and basically being put down, negative behaviors, things of that effect. Even as adults, keeping up with the Joneses. I want to make sure, worry about what somebody thinks, how they think, what direction they go. These are all shame-based behaviors. And so as you look at them, let's look at them from both sides, from 4 perspectives: physically, emotionally, spiritually, and socially. Begin with physically, our physical body. So many of us suffer from physical dysmorphia. We have a sense very many times of having a negative image of our body. Many of us were taught that as children. Many of us saw ourselves in negative ways. I know growing up as a little child, so many times physically, I had such a negative image of myself. I always thought that I was ugly. I had no real sense of myself. I was scared. I was afraid. All these things interplayed. Also, I had wonderful nicknames when I was a kid, like Fat Boy, Church Mouse, Mama's Boy. They were wonderful nicknames when I was a small boy in those early years. As a result, then I picked up a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of things that became normal to me. So as a result, you end up isolating, hiding, running, and also having a negative image of your body. Ever since I was a child, part of my body image thing, I've always had larger breasts. And as a result, I used to get kidded a lot about that. A lot of shame-based things connected with that. And so literally, even to this day, I still go through images in that direction. I fight with it, I battle with it. It's interesting sometimes because I realize now my eating disorder and my addictions all were fundamentally shame-based. Because literally, I found out later through therapy that my eating disorder was centralized around my distorted body image. And so people have eating disorders very many times, even though I'm probably in better shape now than I was in when I was 40 years old. I can still wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and I have what we call in EDA recovering circles, I have a fat day. I see an obese person in the mirror. I see a distorted image of myself in the mirror. And as a result, then it's almost like a dry drunk for an alcoholic. Not that it's really real, but it is for me because it's the way I see my body. And so as a result, shame can do a lot to your physical body. And many of us have a tendency to be tough on ourselves, to beat ourselves up, and feel like we don't deserve any better. But we go the other extreme too. Many of us, because we have shame-based images of our body, can go to compulsive exercising, can go to wanting people to see that I'm this beautiful thing, stuff to that effect. We're always worried about that. And our society doesn't help us any, especially now with the Barbie image and stuff to that effect. It's amazing how social media plays into the shame-based concept also. And so many times people basically want to fit in, they want to be accepted, they want people to acknowledge them. All these things are part of that shame-based concept. And yet we picked that up in childhood. I know Growing up as a little boy, my mother didn't help me any because literally she was overprotective and over smothering. And literally growing up, there were many shame-based things which connect with the emotional piece. Because I learned as a young kid, be quiet, don't speak, mind your own business. Your feelings don't mean anything. And if you're having feelings and you're really getting upset, go eat, sit down, you'll feel better. You wonder why I ended up with an eating disorder. So literally, I'm learning these tools, these concepts, these things. All of us have learned different things in different directions. And so as a result, we take these into our adult life. And as a result, I still have some of these behaviors. Like every once in a while, I'll be standing in front of the refrigerator with the door open, and my wife will say to me, "What are you doing? Air conditioning the kitchen?" I have no idea why I'm standing there. But there's that thing inside of me. When I would get upset sometimes, it's what I used to do when I was a kid. I go to that. So the pattern still comes back. The things, you don't even realize you're doing it. And so the learned behaviors come from that. And the things we connect with it. On an emotional level, nobody ever told me that it was okay to have feelings. For 44 years of my life, I was frozen solid. They tell us in the program, we're as sick as our secrets. And many of us were taught not to talk about certain things, to keep your mouth shut. I know in my family especially, I was told over and over again, you never, never, never talk about the family, la familia. Shh, be quiet. Keep the secrets. Keep everything inside. Don't talk about anything. Don't get anything out. I took that into my adulthood. And as a result, I kept so much stuff buried and secret for such a long period of time. I never would have talked about things I'm talking about now if I didn't get into recovery. It's just totally amazing. I look at life so differently today than I did back then. And yet, even though you work on yourself, you do things to help you, you to get in touch with your feelings, you're able to express your emotions, but the old tapes still come back. And so many times I find myself being afraid to say things. I don't want to upset anybody, so it's easier just to operate this way, to hide, to run away. And you'll fall back into the patterns. This is not to look at ourselves and realize these are just things that we experience as we go through these elements of shame. I also realize spiritually, and I know the whole area, many of us, experience different aspects of shame. Growing up in my day and generation, the church, guilt, fear, oh my God, I still joke about it today. I can joke about it now. But when I was a kid, basically, as soon as I was born, they gave me a PhD in fear, guilt, and worry. They're automatic. So I was getting shame-based things right from my childhood. I also got shame-based messages, and many of them came from the family in different directions. So on an emotional level, spiritual level, we pick up patterns of original shame, and it comes into our adult life, and we experience it. One of the ones I'll never forget and the effect I had in the aspect of shame. I was born cesarean birth. My mother almost died on the operating table. She was sick for a long period of time. And my aunt still used that on me so many times for control. Whenever I began to act up a little bit, she would say, "You better be good. You almost killed your mother once. You might kill her again." And so I never thought as a little kid, I almost killed my mother. So all that shame, all that guilt. And as a result, I always wanted to please her, make her happy, and do whatever she wanted me to do. I don't want to make any mistakes. And then I go into my adult life, and I begin to live my life that way. I live my life wanting to perform constantly, always be on, never fall apart, never have feelings, never get in touch with these things. It makes you crazy after a while. And I've said over and over again that so many of us, even get into relationships, we have a hard time expressing our feelings, the things that are going on inside of us. So as that, what I want to do, I get caught up in those codependent behaviors. I want to please, make people happy. Don't get upset. Don't get upset. Don't feel. And I want to tell you right now, I get really angry at people when I'm sharing my feelings and they say to me, don't get upset. Everything's okay. Right away, want to give me advice. Sometimes you just want to be able to share your feelings. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to go through changes. It's okay to feel. One of the beautiful things I ever learned in my life was that feelings are neither right nor wrong. They're just feelings. Growing up as a kid, in the school system, especially back then in the Catholic school system, I definitely was taught guilt and fear. My aspect of God was a punishing God, a God that was out to get me. And so fear, control, all these things were used as shame-based behaviors to literally keep you in line, to keep you in control. And as a result, they then became normal. They became part of it. I thank God I was able to break loose from a lot of that, but it's not easy. I know I was working with a couple individuals who really, really got so trapped into that shame-based stuff that they have a hard time letting it go. And as a result, they literally almost destroyed their adult lives and beating themselves up and being hard on themselves. Because basically, we always feel like we're doing something wrong, when really in reality, we're just human. Yes, we make mistakes, and yes, we screw up. It's all part of the journey and part of life. But at the same time, I want everybody to be happy. Well, if you can do that, please call me. I want to take you on tour. Make everybody be happy all the time. I don't want anybody to be upset. I want everybody to like me. I want everybody this and everybody that. They're all shame-based behaviors. I can still see the nuns, and I always love it. I should show this to you. Give me a second. I have to get it. This is a funny thing. This was given to me quite a while ago. But some of the older people in here will understand this. You remember this? That was called discipline. Okay. And every time I look at this little thing on my desk, I hear that clip, that click, right away I tense up. I went to see a play with my wife called Nonsense, and it was a takeoff on a nun based back when things were before. Carol, you remember that? And basically, I was sitting there, and as soon as a nun came out, she started to talk. My whole body froze. I went right back into my old behavior. And then she gave my wife hell. Gave me hell for sitting too close to my wife, because I didn't leave room for the Holy Spirit in between the two of us. And then she called my wife up on stage and gave her a pair of rosary beads to protect her from me. It's totally amazing. I laugh at this stuff today, and I can joke about it today, but hey, come on. That noise still says a lot to me. It's totally amazing when you come right down to it. And so I realize over and over again that we pick up these behaviors, we take them into our adult life, and unless we're able to really learn a principle, which I'll talk more about the next 2 weeks, it's a process called shame reduction. And I love that concept because it means reducing the shame to a manageable level. See, I finally got this through my thick skull. Many of these shame-based behaviors that I was taught, things that are part of me, they're on occasion, they're going to come up. Even on a social level. So many times, so many of us have a fear of socializing, of being connected to people, because we're worried about what will they think? How will they find me? Will I fit in? Will I be accepted? And so it's easier just to isolate and stay away from everything and stay in your little cocoon and not go out there, because you go out there and you take a chance. Because people basically may talk about you. And maybe they're talking about you, they're doing you a favor. I don't know. But they'll talk about you. And basically, as a result, then you get scared. You want to make sure nobody talks about you. I don't know how you can deal with that one. Good luck with that. The bottom line is, we get so caught up in this on the social level. I want to be accepted. And many times as a child, all I wanted to do was fit in, be part of the crowd, be connected. But I never really felt that until, thank God, I really say this, I'm glad my mom put me in the seminary, because then I finally had to do some growing up and start learning and start experiencing things. But even then, I learned something from my father. I learned these behaviors. Do everything for everybody, then they will like you. So you just keep doing, and doing. But never do anything for yourself, because you're always number two. You're not number one. So if you put yourself, here's one of the great shame-based things. If you put yourself as number one, you're being selfish. Another shame-based word. I'm so glad Al-Anon changed that word to self-caring. But the beautiful concept is we fall back into these patterns. What I'm trying to bring across to you tonight is that on all different levels of life, many of us were taught different types of shame-based behaviors. Many of us experienced abuse, abandonment. So many of us went through stuff where we went through the process of having to grow up too fast. Another shame-based concept, where you give them responsibilities way before you needed them. I look at my own life. At 26 years old, I went to my first parish. Come to find out, I'm going to live with an alcoholic pastor who was never there. And all of a sudden, I was running a parish. You see somebody who felt shame? I had no idea what I was doing. So I just did it. I survived. But at the same time, it took everything out of me, ripped me to shreds while I did it. I ended up having to do all kinds of things in the course of my journey I never knew I could do. I even ran Starting Point for 38 years. I had no idea what I was doing, but we survived. Thank God for the higher power. Loretta even says that to me. He says, how'd you do this for all those years? I said, I don't know, just did it. So the bottom line is you do what you have to do. And as a result, then you don't realize the fact of what's really going on. If you stop and think about it, you say, whoa. But the bottom line is sometimes you get to that point. And that's where my workaholism, my behaviors, things of that effect, even today, I still have a hard time relaxing, just doing nothing, relaxing. It's almost like I feel like I'm being bad. So the old tapes still play. Somebody might say something to you and it triggers something from the past. And by the way, that's all normal. That's what happens in shame-based behaviors. I love this aspect of John Bradshaw when he did his workshop and did some geneograms with us. And he showed us how different shame-based behaviors came from different areas of your journey in life and how you picked up what we call original shame, and then how you took that into your adult life and began to not only learn shame, but teach shame to others by becoming shame-based to them. And one of the things we do very many times in the course of our journey is we're doing a lot of this, not even realizing we're doing it. So I'm not talking about blame. I'm talking about the fact that we pick up behaviors, we pick up shame-based behaviors, and then all of a sudden, we're experiencing them in our adult life, and we're doing them in our relationships and things of that effect. And as a result, then literally, we have a tendency to put people down, to look at them negatively, to constantly criticize them. And literally, in reality, remember something. Whenever you're doing stuff like that, you're actually talking about yourself. Because we do what they said in the reading. We project. Because we feel shame so many times, we try to project it onto others. If they accept it, then you feel better. But we have to learn not to take it. And so we have to realize the fact that it's okay to acknowledge this issue called shame. And I want to really emphasize this because shame to me is such a core issue. Think about it for a minute. Let's go into the life of a recovering drug addict or alcoholic just to start. You're in your addiction and you're doing all kinds of different types of behaviors. And then all of a sudden, you go through a rehab and you get sober. And now all these memories start coming back of things that you did. Why do you think so many people relapse? They can't handle it. It's easier to go back to the embalming fluid than to have to feel. And that's why a support system, people around you, a strong, healthy concept. It goes back to that same principle back in the beginning. It takes a community to raise a child. It takes a community to raise the early stages of recovery. We need each other, need to be connected to each other. We have to be able to hold on to something. And every time we try to do things just by ourselves, we try to control it, it doesn't work. Why? You go back into the old behaviors again. I know in my own life, I got to be very careful about this. And that's why I want to stay connected. I want to stay around people. I want to be able to experience it, but I'm still going to fall back into old patterns. And one of the craziest patterns I fall back into is very many times, having a tendency to want to do too much. And then all of a sudden I got to pull back. And I got to find myself again and pull back again. And sometimes I want to hit myself in the head a few times, but I don't. I just pull back. Because I realize over and over again, patterns, they come back to you constantly. And that's why I wanted to spend the night tonight talking about what I call the faces of shame. For example, some of the faces, they're negative all the time. The world sucks, everything sucks, nobody's this, nobody's that. There's no joy, no celebration. And if you live in total negativity, it's a sad place to live. So you're constantly shaming yourself. Everything's bad, everything's terrible, stuff to that effect. You get caught up in all kinds of resentments, all kinds of fears, holding grudges against people, holding back. We do this because I am so afraid to have to deal and be able to work through stuff and work in another direction. It's so much more fun to blame other people, to put the shame on somebody else. When I do that, I'm trying to relieve myself. But really, in reality, the shame takes on a lot of faces, a lot of different directions. It takes on fear. In the iceberg theory, right at the core of the iceberg, it talks about the concept of grandiosity. It talks about the concept of self-hatred, about the concept of shame that shame creates inside of us. The whole concept of an illusion that things are okay when they're not okay, an illusion not to feel. All these illusions, these are the things we live by in the course of our journey. So I guess what I'm saying tonight is take it easy. I want to identify shame, identify the faces of shame, identify the aspects of shame. One of the most powerful areas of shame is perfectionism. I have to look perfect. I have to make sure I never have a bad feeling. I got to be the perfect model for everything and everybody and everywhere. I have to basically make sure I do all my rituals the way it's supposed to be done. Otherwise, God will be upset at me. I have to be able to do this and do that. I look at life and everybody to see that I am this beautiful, perfect person. And perfectionism can kill you. And yet it's a shame-based behavior. It's amazing when you come right down to it. We get into all types of thinking. We call it lying. I call it disassociation, making up stories, trying to survive, trying to basically make people think you know something when you don't know anything. I don't know the answer. I have to make believe I do. As a result, then they'll know, he's pretty knowledgeable, even though I'm not. See, anytime you find yourself trying to do things that you're not, you get yourself into trouble. I get it all the time. People call me up and they say, you do this type of counseling, that type of counseling. I say, no. Because literally I'm not a trained therapist. I'm a pastoral, I have my degree in pastoral theology and pastoral counseling. I can do basic counseling, but you come to me for marriage therapy? I don't know what I'm doing. Now, could I get through it? Probably. Could I, they call the term jip job it and get through it? I don't want to do that. But in the past, I've done things like that. I've had myself do things that I didn't believe I could do, and I did them. I don't even know how I did them, but it's totally amazing. So you look at life and you realize the fact that so many things in life, these patterns all fit right in. But the most important thing of all we'll talk about tonight is, and they say this in the program, we are as sick as our secrets. When you hold something in and you bury it, it buries you. And so many of us have held so much garbage inside for such a long period of time. We never realized. I was so afraid to let this stuff out, to talk about it. And that's why I say this to you with as much love as I can. Please, please, don't walk the journey of life alone and by yourself. We need to be connected to others. We need to be around people we can feel good with, we can trust, we can share things with. Don't be afraid to do that. We need a sense of family, a place to belong, to be connected. Loneliness is one of the most powerful aspects of shame. There's a big difference between loneliness and aloneness. Yes, we need time to be alone, put things together. But loneliness is so destructive, it's unbelievable. You can be the most active person in the world and be the loneliest person in the world. So many people can perform, get things done, they're there, everything else, but deep down inside, they're all by themselves and they're lonely. And they feel like they never do fit in. You know, we have to give up the hero roles, getting caught up in all that craziness and that insanity. So tonight in prayer, I just want to ask all of us tonight to relax, take it easy. I know this talk tonight was a little bit on the depressing side, so sorry about that. But I just want to identify the faces. I do recommend getting a copy of the Iceberg Theory. It's very powerful. And you realize that addiction is only a cover-up. It's a way to avoid having to feel, be in touch with feelings. And all the elements of Iceberg Theory are right in the middle of it. This beautiful little thing. You can find it, under Vince's Corner under the alternative resources. And what's so beautiful about it is it really pinpoints all these areas, rigidity, being uptight, all these types of things. So what I want to do for the next 2 weeks, I promise you, the next 2 weeks will be very uplifting. I want to do a thing called, and John Bradshaw does it beautifully, it's called shame reduction. What does that mean? It means facing my shame and reducing it, bringing it down to a manageable level so I can face it, embrace it, heal it, learn from it, and grow from it to be able to move forward. So it's a total recovery process that goes along with this. It's pretty neat. And I've learned over the years, shame can be such a binder. It can bind you. We have to learn to unbind ourselves and realize the fact that these are things we have to face in life. We're going to experience shame. Shame's part of the journey. It's part of the journey. We're going to meet people that will shame you. You're going to meet situations in life. But how do we handle them? What do we do with them? How do we reduce them to a manageable level? And that might mean reducing your shame just to an issue of guilt and be able to work a process to go through it. We'll work on all this stuff in the next 2 weeks. But I wanted to identify shame tonight and to show you the faces of it and to realize that all of us, no matter who we are, I don't care who you are, what you are, where you go, we're all equal. We all have these faces inside of us. We're all facing them at one time or another. And as a result, instead of running from them and hiding from them, to be able to face them, come to grips with them, calm them down, and move forward. So my prayer tonight is that we could just take the time to be able to embrace these things in life, to embrace our history, to be able to grow from it and learn from it. So let us pray. God, we come before you as a family tonight. We ask the God of our understanding, our higher power, our divine presence, to guide us and be with us as we walk this journey. This journey of facing things in life that sometimes are painful, sometimes hurtful, but teach us to realize that deep down within we have your love, your energy, and your power. We'll be able to heal, learn, and grow from all these different situations that occur in life. Thank you, my God. Thank you for the gifts you've given to us. The gift of energy, the gift of love, the gift of healing, the gift of learning, the gift of growing. We come here with gratitude. And we try to live in that spirit of gratitude, spirit of humility. Teach us to accept the reality of our life and where we are and realize that as we heal and grow forward, we can learn and grow from all the situations in our life. For you are a teacher. And sometimes we have to go down into the pit to be able to find our way back out. Sometimes we've got to go through our struggle to come to the other side. All these things are necessary in the course of the journey because everything in life that's worthwhile, we have to earn, we have to struggle, we have to work through it. We can always come on the other side if with your help, the help of others, stay connected to learn and grow from each person we meet in the course of the journey. So thank you. Thank you for the journey. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for these gifts. And we ask that we may work with you and work with others in learning to reduce and can deal with the issues of shame in our life. We pray and we ask this and we pray it in your name. Amen.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.